You're listening to We Resolve to Win, the podcast for women who have resolve by women who seek to resolve conflict in their personal and professional lives and desire to negotiate no matter what. I'm your host, Elizabeth Go, a lawyer, conflict resolution expert, and negotiation coach dedicated to helping women resolve conflict at work, strengthen their relationships, and negotiate with confidence. Ladies, let's go and be great. Hi, winners. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. I release one or more episodes per week where we talk about all things conflict resolution, negotiations, relationships, communications, and speaking up more in your life as a woman. So please do me a favor. As always, I ask of you to do this for me every week, so I can't miss this week, of course. Please do me a favor. Follow me on social media at We Resolve to Win. That's We Resolve to Win. Take a screen grab of this episode and share it on your Instagram or your Facebook stories. And please tag me. I would love to see where this podcast is reaching in different cities, in different states. We have a listener in Switzerland, which is super exciting. And also be sure to sign up for email alerts so that you know when a new episode has been released, or just to receive more information that you probably would not receive on an episode of a podcast. The additional information that you receive on an email alert includes information about our guests that come on the podcast, information about different challenges that we are having, and information about what is going down in our Facebook group. Of course, join our Facebook group. It's a wonderful community. Right now, we have about 125 women, and we have 75 women in the waiting room, if you will. So I just have to go through and bring them into the group. And I'm so thankful that we are going to be at about 200 people very soon in our We Resolve to Win group. So to the point of challenges, I would like to talk to you about a free negotiation challenge that we are having beginning next week, January 6th, 2020. Let's start the year off right. Let's be sure that we are negotiating in our relationships. Let's make sure that we are negotiating debt if we have debt, and if we don't have debt and we are debt free, that we are fully assessing our finances and negotiating in certain areas that we actually can leverage. And of course, if you are working in corporate America or nonprofit or any small business, this is an opportunity for you to learn also how to flex your courage muscle and negotiate your salary. And if you are out of corporate America, this is still a great opportunity for you to learn how to negotiate in your business. This is a 4-week challenge. Again, absolutely free. It's relationships, negotiations, communications, and generally speaking up more in your life as a woman. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are that you love podcasts, and chances are that you have something to share with the world. So why not create your own podcast? Anchor is the easiest way to get started with your podcast. It's how I got started, and honestly, I love it. And I literally mean that. Here are 3 reasons why you should use Anchor. 1, it's absolutely free. You simply download the app in the App Store or Google Play. 2, Anchor will distribute your podcast to different platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And those are just 3 of the many different platforms that Anchor does all the heavy lifting for you. And 3, you can make money from your podcast even if you don't have many people listening, or you feel that you have a very low listenership. It's okay. You can still make money. When I first got started, I was able to join the Anchor private Facebook group, and I learned so much from this large community of other podcasters. You know how I'm big into community, and you know how it makes a world of difference. So download the free Anchor app today, or go to anchor.fm and get started. You won't regret it. Thanks so much, you guys. Alrighty, you guys, it is the new year. I am so excited that 2020 is here. I am confident that so many great things are going to happen for us in 2020. And I hope that you are going into 2020 with a renewed mind and an opportunity for you to just be alert emotionally, mentally, and prepare yourself to reach your goals for 2020. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to get closer to reaching your goals in 2020. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because 2019 was a very interesting year. It was a year of great success, but at the same time, it was a year of striving. I found that I had to strive in many different areas, and I find that many women that I've talked to, whether they are personal friends or my colleagues, people in my various cohorts, I find that they had to strive as well in 2019. And so I thought to myself, what an opportunity to discuss how to get closer to your 2020 goals. Because I'm quick to ask someone, especially a friend, how are you getting to your goals? What are you doing? What ways can I support you in getting to your goals? And I know that sometimes we will start the new year with a great attitude, and we will say, yes, I'm super excited. I can put the year behind me. I can look forward. I can start the new year and I can reach my goals. But then we get to March, we get to April, we get to May, and we find that we are not aligned with where we were mentally originally at the beginning of the year, or we find that we are not reaching our goals and we simply give up. So in this episode, I want to talk about how to get closer to your goals. Some of the things that I did. 2019 again was a very interesting year. It was awesome for me in that I was thankful to reach many of my goals, but I had some learnings as well, and I want to be transparent and share that with you. And I want you also to pause and think to yourself, what are some things that I can do to get to my goals with some of these steps? So the first thing that you want to do is assess your year. You want to assess how 2019 went. How did it go? What went well? What did not go well? And what are some of the learnings? And you want to do that first by breaking down the year. There are 8 categories to which you can break down the year. The first one is physical, or your health. How did you do physically? How did you do health-wise? The second one is relationally. How did you do with your relationships? Were you a great friend? Were you a great sibling? Did you have date nights with your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other? How did you do financially? Or are you someone that is on the debt-free journey? Did you meet your goals? Did you pay off debt successfully? Or did you find yourself going back to your old habits? You can also look at how you did in your business or professionally, your career. How did I do in my career? Did I advance in my career? Did I have intentions to advance in my career? Did that go well? Did I perform in a great way? You can also assess how you did spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I want to lump these 3 together. They are separate, but for the purposes of this episode, I want to lump these 3 together because often they are intertwined in one another, where a person may emotionally go through certain things and they are unable to anchor themselves spiritually. If they are a person of faith, of a particular faith, that inability to anchor themselves spiritually can affect them emotionally, and as a result, really negatively impact their mental health. And lastly, you can also assess environmental, physical, health, relational, spiritual, mental, emotional, financial, and professional. There are 8 categories. But for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to share 3 areas that I did really well in and 2 areas that I will do better in this year in 2020. But first, before delving into those areas, I want to talk about setting SMART goals. And when I first learned about SMART goals, I was quite annoyed by it, to be honest with you. I thought to myself, well, a goal is a goal, and if you know what your goal is and if you set it, you should be good to go. Why do you have to break it down and go through different intricacies and nuances? What does that really matter, and what difference does that make? It makes a difference. So SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. You want to set SMART goals. So rather than just simply saying, I want to go to the gym more this year, you can say, I want to go to the gym 4 days a week for 45 minutes each time for the first 3 months. So by doing it that way, you are able to set a SMART goal because it's very specific. You can measure whether or not you have successfully gone to the gym up to 4 times a week or for 4 times a week. You can assess and measure whether or not you worked out successfully for the 45 minutes. And that is a goal that is achievable because you know your situation better than anyone else. You can say to yourself, if I set a calendar reminder, if I talk to my accountability partner, if I have certain parameters around me that can allow me to achieve that goal, I will be successful in that. Also, it is relevant. If you want to get better in your health, then obviously going to the gym is something that can impact you in a great positive way. Thus, it is relevant to getting you to a point of success as it relates to physical health. Finally, it is time bound. Time bound in that you are setting for 45 minutes and also time bound for saying for the first 3 months of the year. By doing it this way, by setting a SMART goal, you actually have more details to work from, and you're able to pull as many resources as possible to reach that goal. So one of the goals that I had this year, which is quite, it's a different goal from what most people actually say. So at the end of 2018, one goal that I had for 2019 was to decrease the amount of sugar that I had in my diet. I have a sweet tooth like no one else. I've never met anyone that loves desserts, candies, chocolates, cookies, ice cream, you name it. I want it. I've had it. It's delicious. I don't care who baked it. It's mine. I want it. That's how obsessed, that's how obsessed I was about cakes and cookies and sugars. And I truly had a problem. I truly had a problem. So at the end of 2018, I said, I want to reduce my sugar. Now, that is not a particularly smart goal because, again, it's very generic. It's very broad. I may or may not reach it, and it doesn't hold me accountable. So what I did once the year turned on January 1st, I said to 3 people in my life, I said, I am going to reduce sugar. And the way that I'm going to reduce sugar is by cutting out all desserts for the 2019 year. I will not have any desserts whatsoever. And the way that looks for me is that if I go out for dinner, I will say no to ordering dessert. I will not look at the dessert menu. I will not order any desserts when I order my groceries. I will be very clear and intentional not to order desserts. And this will be for 365 days. Now, when you set a SMART goal and you share that SMART goal for accountability purposes, you may have individuals that will look at you as though your goal is not truly achievable, but you know whether or not your goal is achievable. So when I shared my goal with 3 people in my life, those individuals all responded in like kind. The first person said, well, why don't you try to take it 1 week at a time? Because to set a goal to not have any desserts for the whole entire year, knowing as much as you like to eat desserts, knowing how you are as an individual, you may not reach that goal. So why don't you try a week at a time? So that was the first response. The second response was literally an eye roll and a walk off. It was my husband. He rolled his eyes and he walked off and he said, okay, sure. And then the third person that I shared it with, which was a colleague at my job, she said, why would you set yourself up for failure? Why not just try day by day, similar to the first response, right? So why not try day by day? Why would you set yourself up for failure? And so I found that because of my habits, understandably so, that the goal that I set for myself, when I shared it, it appeared as though it was not truly achievable. But no one knows you better than yourself, right? So I knew that I could achieve this goal. And I am proud to say that for the entire year of 2019, I did not have one cookie, one slice of cake, one brownie. I had none of it. I did not have any of it whatsoever. And I am quite taken aback. And I will say it has shown me so much of myself, and it has done so much for me physically. The first month I lost 4 pounds without even trying in January of 2019. I then found that the second month I lost 2 pounds, again, not trying, just simply reducing my sugar. And then I eventually found that I really, really, really wanted to consume, because I was physically used to consuming large amounts of candy and chocolates and things of that nature. But I found that while I began to struggle and began to question whether or not I could reach that goal, I anchored myself in saying, you can do this. I know you can do this. And I've been challenged to do so, because I had 3 people very close to me that didn't believe that I can do it. So I felt that challenge, right? So I said, you can do this. You absolutely can do this. You made it the first month. You made it the second month. You've got 10 months left. Come on, dig your heels in, grit your teeth, do something different, and do not pick up the cookie. Do not pick up the cookie. So I set a SMART goal, and I was able to reach that goal. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to prove to myself, really, that I can actually set SMART goals and I can reach those SMART goals. So that's one area that I succeeded in 2019. The second area that I succeeded in is financial. I wanted to do better financially, and I firmly believe in negotiating debt. And because of law school, thanks a lot, law school, but because of law school, I have a lot of debt. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to pay off $30,000 worth of debt, which is so much if you think about it. It's like $30,000. Wow, that's incredible. But I set my intentions to do so, and I got organized, and I reached out to people, and I consumed podcasts, and I listened to Dave Ramsey, and I learned about the FIRE community. And the FIRE stands for Financially Independent Retire Early. They are different from individuals that truly follow Dave Ramsey to a T, in that they believe in increasing their savings rate above 50%, and then taking that money and investing it as much as possible so that they can reach their FIRE number. And I'll add information in the details of this podcast so you can learn more about it. But what I did was I learned and consumed as much information as possible, and I increased my savings about $18,000 this year, and I was successful in paying off over $32,000 this year. So that is the second area, because I was very intentional about setting a SMART goal. And finally, the third area was environmental. And I set a goal to either travel more this year, because I said I want to get passport stamps. And 2019 was a tad bit difficult. I found myself striving and really warring with 2019. I said, I'm going to get passport stamps. And I felt 2019 said, no, food stamps. But I said to myself, I am going to get passport stamps. And I was successful in doing that as well. 2 areas that I did not do very well in 2019 are emotional, and I can kind of lump emotional and mental together. Emotional and mental, and relational. And emotionally, relocating out of the country was very taxing, because I was super excited about it, but I was on a roller coaster of emotions, because it's a different culture, it's a different language. I had people questioning whether or not it was a good idea. I had so many people infusing or attempting to ingratiate their fear into my decision, and I found myself being pulled and having polarizing emotions. And also relationally, because my husband and I were so focused on saving money, paying off debt, and moving out of the country being the United States, we found that we didn't get a chance to go on as many date nights as we could have. And, we didn't get a chance to connect as much. And those are the 2 areas. So emotional, mental, and relationally. So the SMART goals that I'm setting for those 2 areas, and I'm sharing these with you. So 1, you can hold me accountable, and 2, so that you can seek to really assess how you did in 2019 and set SMART goals for 2020. For emotional and mental, what I plan to do is journal at least 3 times a week to help me process my emotions when I'm stressed. I will go to therapy at least 1 time a week and get tips from my therapist to manage my anxiety and any work-related stress. My corporate job was very, very difficult this year, and I found that the stress and the anxiety that came along with the requirements from me brought forth a lot of, again, polarizing emotions. So one thing that I decided to do that I began a couple of weeks ago is go to therapy. And I think that many people are so afraid of therapy because it takes work, it takes confronting the issues that you may be dealing with, and therapy is accountability, and many people do not want to have that crucial conversation with themselves, let alone a licensed professional. And so I went to therapy a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was 90 minutes of just processing and talking with someone and a little crying, and it was so healthy for me emotionally. So I said to myself, 2020, I absolutely will go to therapy at least 1 time a week just for checkups, right? We need that opportunity to have an emotional check. We need to speak with someone that has been professionally trained to really help you process. And I think that sometimes we as women, we have a tendency to want to process with our siblings or process with a close friend, and that is great. However, there are times where we need to seek professional help, and that is okay. That is absolutely okay. So that is for those 2 areas. Those are my SMART goals for those 2 specific areas for 2020. And for relational, that area, I plan to prioritize date night with my husband, and I will do that by having a babysitter here every Wednesday night in order to allow us to even just go for a stroll or check out a movie or just process our day with one another, or just talk to each other where we're not talking about the children or talking about the businesses and things of that nature. And I will also go to a monthly meetup group with some expats and try to connect with other international travelers. And I think it's so important to ensure that we, again, are anchoring ourselves with good community. Community is so important. Finding a tribe is so important, and having those individuals hold you accountable or just simply letting you know that you are not alone is very important. It's pertinent to your development. It's pertinent to your growth, and it supports you in a way that you don't even realize until you've gone through the journey. And lastly, I want to support you as much as possible, and I want to inform you on how I do in reaching my SMART goals for this year. And I want to make sure that you are reaching your SMART goals this year as well. So the last tip is to track your progress. I was radical and fanatical about tracking my progress this year, which is why I know down to the penny how much I paid off in debt. I know how many days I was successful in not having any candies and sweets and brownies, which, by the way, I will be having them in 2020. Not as bad as I've had them before, but I will be having them in 2020. But I was fanatical about tracking my progress, and I think it's important that you do the same. You should track your progress. You should share it with a friend, and you should make sure that you have joy in the journey. Sometimes we have so many outside influences. Sometimes if we are a mother and we find our children are sick, or we aren't as successful as we want to be because we are pulled in different directions, we find that it's so difficult that we want to escape. But there can be joy in this journey. You can be encouraged if you look to encouragement, if you look to having joy, if you look to being content. You can anchor yourself in joy in the journey. And whether you are ambitious, or you have a business, or you want to climb the corporate ladder, or you want to lose 30 pounds, you want to get better physically, you want to get better emotionally, you want to have a stronger family unit, you can get there, and it may take some striving, but even if it takes striving, you have to have joy in the journey, because if you don't have joy in the journey, you will find yourself completely burned out, and you will find yourself isolated, and you will find yourself getting to a point where you want to throw your hands up and possibly suffering through some mental health issues. And so I want to support you again, and I want to support you by always being a listening ear. I would love to see a tweet from you, love to see you post in the We Resolve to Win group. If you haven't joined just yet, please join. And I want to make sure that I am transparent and sharing my goals with you, so that in 2020 we can walk through this journey together, and we can walk through it successfully with joy. So I hope that 2020 is a year that you are able to go in and say, absolutely, I have great expectations for myself. I know what my goals are. I'm tracking my goals. I will reach my goals. And even if I do not reach my goals perfectly, I know that I will be successful and measure success in a kind and gentle way towards myself. So thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm excited that we have more guests coming up in 2020 that will talk about their journey, talk about how to succeed, and talk about how to ensure that they are and that you are someone that is going after greatness, however greatness looks for you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. I'll catch you next week. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of We Resolve to Win. But don't worry, the fun doesn't stop there. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at We Resolve to Win. And you can join our free private Facebook group where we share success stories and strategies on negotiating and resolving conflict in all areas of your life. Until next time, be well.